3 p.m. March 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Lakeland Conservancy District Board of Directors. We will begin with public comments. If there's any members of the public that would like to make a comment, we ask you to come to the podium, and if you would, at least identify what district you're in if you know, and we'll go from there. I'm not sure if I said also please state your name.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Teresa Sims, and I live on Snug Harbor Lane, on the overflow area. And so I'll need it as far as my identification.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a few pages, so bear with me. Heavy rains in California are causing mudslides. One person had mud cover his whole property and his driveway and everything. So he hires someone to remove the mud and has them push it over onto his neighbor's property. I'm sure everybody here agrees you can't do that. So we have a similar situation going on here at Lake Lemon. Dirt, the heavy rains are bringing dirt and it's coming in on the main lake. And in order to remove it and relocate it, the sediment to improve the lake value and access for some freeholders, it's going to be placed in the lakefront of fellow freeholders over in the overflow side, taking those people's lake value away. It's not right. How did we ever get to this point? Here's, Mike has a binder. I'm not sure what it's called. Mike, you might be able to tell. Did you bring it?
No, but it's on the website. It's called the district plan.
District plan. And it has documents that state the rules the district's supposed to go by. And it kind of govern the lake for the conservancy. And there's a document signed by, I believe it's Judge Bridges. I don't remember the year. But as far as I know, no judges overturned it or reversed it. And so I'm going to distribute the page. It talks about the conservancy, existence of the conservancy district. I'll give it a page to everybody. Maybe not everybody out there, but I think Sharon has a copy.
Thank
you. And I've highlighted the main point. The existence of the district with its unified control on lake management programs will enhance property values, even for those properties which are not water frontage. Okay, so we own down to the water with the first house on the overflow area. And then Brenda and Rebecca live on the next house. Our water goes down to our property goes down into the water. Theirs doesn't quite go to the water. And then we have a brand new big house, I don't know if you've been over there, being built that also doesn't go down into the water. But we all have common values on what we value our property for. Let's see. It doesn't, on this page, it doesn't specify monetary property values, just as property values. So every freeholder has their own reason why their property has personal value to them. I suppose it's probably much the same for everyone. For as it is For us, this is our permanent retirement home. We couldn't afford to have a house and a lake home. We waited and lived at our home in Bloomington for 31 years. We got our mortgage paid off and we found a retirement. My husband loves to fish. And this was purchased for our water access, fishing off the bank or from a small boat from our shore, kayaking, and watching the wildlife and the sunsets reflect off the water from our porch. When we get too old and can't load our boat and launch it and climb into it, we still can walk to the water with bait and a fishing line and fish. It's his passion. It's so much of a passion for him and my sons that when, probably 30 years ago for Christmas, I got them all lifetime fishing license because that's what we do. We've waited years to get this property. Our neighbors from the other two properties on Snug Harbor Lane purchased their properties for probably those same personal values. Filling the water in erases how we value our property down to zero. We had no more fishing off the bank, no more kayaking. And even after they plant the trees, it's supposed to go on the wetland, we won't even have a view. So on this statement here, it doesn't say that the board gets to vote to disregard this, enhancing property values. It doesn't say that the majority rules over whose property is more valuable and whose can be destroyed. I've not seen anywhere where a judge has changed these guidelines. The board has no right to make the decision to fill in the overflow area and willingly diminish the personal value of properties on Snug Harbor Lane. Let's see. It's not morally right, nor is it legally right. We've been told by a former board member from years ago that filling in the overflow was brought up like over 20 years ago, and it was dismissed next monthly meeting. That's it is. So we purchased our lake property almost 3.5 years ago. This was done before the DNR application, but after we moved in March 2020, we got wind that there was consideration about filling in our lakefront. We expressed our objection, and Adam Casey had a Zoom with us. I can't remember who all else was there. I know Mike was on a conference call. And he'd just been, I guess we'd just been turned down for some kind of state grant that they'd applied for. So Adam, in the discussion, said they were going to take the option of filling in the overflow area off consideration. Mike was on the call, he heard it. So we thought, oh, this is great. We can relax. Then a few months later, we received notification from the DNR that an application for a permit to fill in the overflow area was made. This was the first time Adam kind of let us off track. Got our guard down. Told me once, shame on you. Told me twice, shame on me. So I decided I should not let my guard down again. Let's see. We objected to the permit and appealed it. Had to get a lawyer, pay out thousands of dollars. The district had to pay out thousands of dollars. What a waste of time and money. At the DNR meeting, 99% of the people there objected to filling in the overflow. I don't know how many of you got the opportunity to go to that meeting, but it was standing room only, and the public did not want it done. They liked their causeway, they liked their bikes, their motorcycles, they liked the feeling of going, like you're going through water and you're surrounded by water. That was the gist of it. They didn't think it was gonna work. But unfortunately, the DNR, Division of Water, only looks at the floodway. They don't consider any of the opinions of the public. They don't consider even this statement on our guidelines in our book of what the conservancy is supposed to do. We hired the lawyer, but my husband, Steve, who's not here tonight, was not feeling really well, and this legal fight was very stressful. So we gave up using the lawyer, not because we thought it was okay to fill in our waterfront, but Steve couldn't deal with the stress, and we did not want to keep spending $10, $20, $30 more thousand in legal fees. So we didn't want the conservancy to waste that money also. So Steve suffered a stroke last summer. No wonder he didn't feel like fighting this fight. He's doing much better now. He has his motor skills back. He can drive a car. He can still cast that fishing pole and reel in some fish. So he's happy. No freeholder. We've been put through what we've been put through. Most of the board members who were pushing for filling in the overflow and destroying our lake retirement values and dreams are no longer on the board. Some are still here, but I think some of them that were really spearheading it are gone. It's not too late to right the ship and cancel the overflow area as an option. The DNR permit did not give you the authority to ignore the judge's ruling that's in our book. That, you know, to ignore that you're supposed to enhance everybody's property values. So I have the DNR permit that was sent to us. I'm going to hand that out. And on the back page, I've highlighted a statement. But on the back page, I highlighted that the DNR permit states this is not a waiver of any local ordinance, meaning our guideline book, and does not relieve the permittee, the association, from the effects which the project can have on the property of others. So this DNR doesn't say it's okay for you to fill in. It says that the waterway concerns, it can be filled in. But it doesn't say that you can void your responsibilities to the freeholders. This legal document from signed off by a judge. Let's see what I say. But there is very good news. It looks like the land-based site, number one, will hold all the dredging material we plan to remove. Early on in the dredging process, when the water was just barely coming in over the bottom, when they were pumping it in, my brother came to visit me and we walked over to the site. My brother was impressed to see how vast the area was. He said, it'll take years to fill this up. In October, Steve and I drove over to look at the progress. It was still pumping water, and by then, it's mostly water that goes through that pipe. It was filled all the way up to where it runs out, full of water. And it was hard to tell how much sediment was in it. There was a worker over there. And Steve asked him, he worked for the dredging company, was this even close to half full? Because it didn't look like it was very full at all. And the guy shook his head and he said, oh no. We were very excited to hear this because the permit says site 1 has to be full before we can start on the overflow. If you look at the first page where it's highlighted, it says dredge disposal area 2, which is our overflow area, our front waterfront, is optional and will only be used if dredge disposal site area number 1 exceeds its filling capacity. Well, there's no way it's even close. It looks like it's maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 full. It's not full, not by a long shot. They stopped dredging in mid-December, about 6 weeks after we were over to look. So we figured we'd give it a couple of months for the water to start to drain down a little before we checked again. In early March, I was talking to one of my neighbors, and she said that she had taken a walk over to the site, and it didn't look very full at all with the dredge material. So a few days later, Steve and I were sitting on our back porch that overlooks the causeway and our water, and we saw 3 men standing on the causeway over the culvert, looking into the overflow side. The neighbors were outside, so I went out over and I asked them to look, and the men were there for quite some time. So I decided to drive down and ask what they were doing. They said they were with a hydraulic dredging company and were discussing moving the operation to the overflow area. I told them, well, I have a permit right here in my car. It says site number 1 needs to be full before starting over here. They said they didn't know anything about the permit. They just did what Adam Casey is telling them to do, instructing them to do. I told them the land-based site was not nearly full, and I have pictures to prove it. I commented, they could dredge 3, 4, 5 more years before it was full. And they said, well, I don't know if it would take quite that long. Right there, they admitted it wasn't near full. That's the second time somebody from that dredging company has told me that then. But they said it would be easy to continue in the land-based site right away as everything was all set up to keep pumping over there. So I called our district rep, Mike, and I informed him, and he asked me to send him a copy of the permit and the pictures showing how much water had drained down and the vast amount of space that was left to be filled. And he said, have you talked to Adam? And I told him that I'd left a message at the office. And I think it maybe even the next day, Ross called me back. And I told him my concern, and he said, do you want me to have Adam call you? And I said, yes. So Adam called me back, and I asked him why were they trying to move to the overflow area, because as I read it, it's in violation of the permit. He claimed site 1 would only hold 100,000 cubic yards. I believe this is what I see. He's throwing out numbers. And they'd already pumped 63,000 cubic yards. I think that's what he said, I'm not sure. So since there wasn't enough room left to hold the remainder of what we wanted to dredge, he's going to start on the overflow area. And I said, there's no way. The area is 2/3 full. It's probably not even a quarter full. And the permit says it needs to exceed capacity. He then remarked that I had my day in court and lost, and this was over, and he was going to proceed. I told him I was going to call DNR. I started to ask him about the part, that next part that's highlighted, dredge operations. The cove will be drained and dredge material placed. So I started asking him about that, but he had already hung up. I did call DNR. I tried to call the Division of Water, but I couldn't reach anybody. So I tried, if you look at the second page of the DNR permit, I highlighted number 4, do not work in the waterway from April 1st through June 30th without prior written approval of the Division of Fish and Wildlife. So I called the Division of Fish and Wildlife because I thought, well, maybe I can get a hold of them because it doesn't have any other success. So I left a message, and 2 days later, Matt Buffington called me back from there. I asked if they had been given written, if we had been given written permission, or if they'd given written permission to us to be able to dredge April 1st through June 30th this year. He said he did not see any request for it yet. And I asked if there was permission given for, because we dredged starting in May last year, which was right in the middle. And he said, yeah, he could look back and see that in 2021, we requested permission and it was given for 2022, which was last year's dredging. But he says permission needs to be requested each year because they don't normally give a permit 2 years in a row to disturb the spawning of the fish and the wildlife. He said he would follow up, and he said Adam Casey was the name on what he had, and I said, yeah, that's right. So I also told him I couldn't get a hold of the Division of Water, and I told him about the permit and that it said that, you know, the land base needed to be full capacity, and I wanted to talk to someone, and he said the division, he wasn't part of the Division of Water, but he said he'd look online, and he was on the phone, and he said, I can't find a name or extension number for anybody to contact. He said he'd follow up on it, and he asked if I had a complaint, and I obviously said yes. I asked if someone from the DNR could come look for themselves, bring a canoe and a depth finder, so they could see how much space there was to go under the water level. From the pictures, it already drained down probably 5 or 6 feet. I don't know how far down it is now because they've started dredging again and putting water back in, and we've got some more rains. But it's still down pretty low from that brown point that where the water was up top. So there's a lot of space because the walls go out like this. So you can see there's a lot of area that's open, a lot of area. He said that they only had 3 inspectors for the whole state. So he didn't know, and he couldn't really speak for the Division of Water, but he said he would try to follow up and inform them. I also spoke to the DNR manager at Lake Monroe, Jim Roche, and he tried to find a name, an extension for the Division of Water, but he couldn't find one online either. So I don't know their website. I couldn't find one when I looked it up either. He said he would keep checking, but I really needed to get with the Lake Lemon Conservancy and inform them. So that's what I'm doing. 2 days ago on Tuesday, I called Matt Buffington from the Division of Fish and Wildlife again to see if we got permission to dredge between April 1st and June 30th. We were already dredging by that time, but that's fine. It's not April yet. You can dredge. He said he finally received a request, so I don't know if he got a hold of you or Mike or somebody got a hold of you. So he got the request, but 2 days ago it was still under review. I asked how likely would it be to get the permission, and he said, well, he thought they were leaning toward going ahead and giving it to us. I said, well, good, this is gonna be great, because it's gonna give us 2 more months longer than we had last year to dredge. Maybe we can get all the dredging that we intended to originally do done this year. And we don't have to come with more money to pay to do it next year. That'd be wonderful. I know there's room over there. I know we don't have a lot of funds. The freeholders are not approving of the conservancy taxes being raised all the time. After all, we're in a recession, for Pete's sake. It's not time to be raising taxes on everybody. So hopefully this will help. We can take a break from the dredging after we get done. And I'll personally work on getting people to take that dredged material from the land-based site. I already have a lead with Harry Pobling. He has a 100-acre farm a little further down on the South Shore, and he gave away a whole bunch of his dirt for a Brown County road project years ago, and he'd love to have some of the dirt put back on his land. He wants 100 triaxle loads. Well, there's a start. I went to school with I graduated from high school with 2 guys that have trucking companies here in Bloomington. Bill Hanna has Hanna Trucking. Greg Young has Young Trucking. I can contact them, see if they deliver filtered dirt. They can come get it. We give it to them. They can charge to haul it to whatever project they're working on. Be good for them, good for us. There's also landscaping companies I can contact. They're doing a retaining wall, they need dirt to fill in. With that, I'd be happy. I'm retired now, so I have time to do it. So I'd be happy to do it. Then we can be able to save up some more money for some more dredging later. We can fill the site up again. Actually, I think that was the original plan, to use the site over and over again, multiple years. So we can go ahead with that plan. We don't have to fill in and ruin our lakefront. It will save us a lot of money. We're not some big metropolitan city with unlimited funds. We need to stop stressing ourselves out and we need to stay within our budget. We need a kumbaya moment. Wouldn't it be nice to give Miss Ladyman a break from these financial worries? So sorry this took so much time. I did take a lot of time. I believe Rebecca and Brenda have something else to report on as well. Thank you.
No.
I'm going to ask for the additional comments, because we have a board member that can only be here till 7. Keep it as brief as possible. But
It'll be very brief.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really for your information. The sedimentation, I don't know when the dates and all that, when it's going to start, but I was walking down at the south and east end of our property by the water. I counted 66 trees that beaver have enjoyed. Some of the trunks, I can't find them. Some of them I can see the smaller ones. They've got some bigger trees that they're just seem to be nibbling at. But I don't know if there is an impact with having beaver and if they have to be move somewhere. Or what you do, because I was thinking environmentally. So I was gonna give you a heads up. You're welcome to come and over and I take you down there and show you around.
Thank you. We'll have staff investigate.
Yeah, I mean, I've not lived on a lake before, so to see all those beavers, I haven't seen the beavers, just the
It's the
beavers.
evidence.
Well, there was one killed on the road though, the causeway, the other day.
Not the way you want to see it.
No.
Any additional members of the public that would like to speak tonight?
I don't know if I should say anything after all that, but, so my name is Susan Hangeveld. I live on the east end, right next to the, what's it called? The dredging, the pump. So, we're the closest house to Little Africa. And our property is losing value because it's silting in. And I don't have any problems with the dredging project per se. I don't think we should fill in the overflow. But it's noisy, and the house that is affected the most is us, and we're not benefiting from the dredging. So it's disappointing to have constant noise. I mean, our house is constant. I mean, they start at between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and it goes past dinner time. So, I mean, not always, it varies, but up until 6 o'clock or something, but it's just constant and it's loud. And I'd invite all of you to come over and hang out on our deck to see how loud it is. And so we live there year round, so we don't get a break from it. I don't know what there is to do, but I think at least some consideration to the fact that people are living there on the property, and constant noise is not very pleasant. And so if there could be some more constricted hours, it would take longer, but it would be a heck of a lot nicer for us. And, you know, we're not benefiting from it. Maybe the rest of the lake is, but as far, maybe eventually it will, but we are not seeing any signs of our area silting in. When we first moved into the lake in 1995, the islands out towards the North Shore were no trees on them. Now they have willows. That's what's happening right in front of our house. So we are not going to have a lake view if it can. We're kind of disgruntled. So noise is an issue too.
Any additional members?
We're Chris and Tina Eason. We live next to Lester, next door to Lester on the lake. We've only lived on the lake, well, about a year and a half, including the short period of time we lived down on Salmon Harbor. But we have been boating on the lake for close to 12 years now. So we've been on Lake Lemon for a long time. Before we bought our property on the lake, we have friends that live on other lakes that we've investigated in purchasing property on to build. And one of the things that we really like about Lake Lemon, the fact that it is a private, or it's not a private lake, that it is a public lake, and that there aren't so many rules and restrictions as there is on, you know, much smaller private lakes. Quite frankly, I think they kind of take the fun out of it. There's so many rules. I know personally, we have friends on Lamb Lake, and there's so many rules that it's not fun anymore. It's constantly neighbors just pointing fingers at you did, you know, that whole thing, which turns into a nightmare. Anyhow, we were a little surprised, I guess is the word, to see the blurb that came out yesterday in the newsletter about the assessment for wake surf boats. So I immediately, because I always scan over the meeting agendas, but I don't always read the meeting packet. So I immediately started backtracking and going through all the meetings and trying to find where we missed it. Like, we would have been at a meeting if we would have known that was something that was being discussed. But I couldn't find any agendas with this topic listed on it. So then I started going through, Chris started going through the
I went
meetings.
through all your YouTube, because Lester had said, oh yeah, it was posted November. Well, there's no YouTube
November.
video for November.
November.
So I guess, and Tina and Lester was talking today, and it wasn't even in November, it was supposedly
October, that you
October.
know, it was decided. But I was under the impression that there was some big discussion that I missed out on, that, I kept trying to search for it. I went through, God, I've watched so many of those videos yesterday and today. But there was never really a big discussion about it. Am I right? Like, it was just kind of like, this is part of our 2023 fees. No, no data was presented on why why wake, the wake,
If you're gonna do wake surfing boats, you need to do all water sports. How can you just pick out and be like,
These boats do more damage to the.
So when we surf, we're trying to stay in the middle of the lake, but you got these skiers that come right in front of our buoy, in front of our dock, within, probably 50, 60 feet. And Lester sees him. I mean, he's our neighbor.
That do just as much damage to the lake shore as what a boat that stays in the center of a lake going 9 miles per hour does. I mean, yes, we create a big surf in the center of the lake. We are not, no surf boat should be going around right at the wake, the no wake zone. I mean, okay.
They shouldn't. I mean, that's the same way with skiers or whatever.
So, we live on the lake. We want to be good stewards of the lake. We would like to have thought that there was a little more transparency with this fee that you were going to incorporate, maybe perhaps contact the very few people that actually have ballast boats on the lake. Lester's under the impression there's 39 wake surf boats on the lake. And we love you, Lester, but that's not true. A wake surf boat with ballast. I mean, a Yamaha has a line of boats that have ballast, and then most of their boats don't. But if it actually has ballast, you got to get on the boat. I mean, Chris and I don't. We've
had a Yamaha before.
Yeah, we've
Just because it has a tower.
Doesn't mean
It doesn't mean it has
it's a
ballast.
surf boat, a true towboat. And towboats are very expensive boats. A ballast boat is very expensive. And I know there's not 39 of them on Lake Limit.
And we did, just for, okay, so like the $200, which is, it's $200. I understand that. But not knowing about all this is coming up, and it's like, if they would approach this, I mean, like when I talked to Adam, when we started building, I put thousands of dollars of riprap and redid all of the jetties there that we own, or don't own, the conservancy owns it, but, we redid all of them, and I didn't come to Adam's like, hey, can you give me $2,000 to do this? And I put some on Lester and I put some on Kelly, the vacant lot. Just try to help.
Trying to be good stewards of the lake and shore up.
And I just have the equipment and stuff and I can do it, so I did it and it's done.
But now now we have to pay $200 for, what are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna go shore up? Is there repair you're gonna make to the shoreline? Are you gonna do stuff to the shoreline with the money you collect from this fee? Because that's what this fee is for, not for dredging. You're collecting this fee because you're saying that the shoreline is being eroded.
So I mean, is that where it's going for? Is it going to?
Because we spent thousands of money in riprap, thousands.
Yeah, we assessed it to help offset those costs. So we have riprapping in our annual budget as maintenance for when we find.
So you would have done our riprap for us?
When we find areas that need it on city of Bloomington property and we have the budget and time, then we can go ahead and look at projects like that. We have discussed this for probably the better part of 2 years in meetings about what to do with wake boats. Because the resuspension, there is effects that come with wake boats. So we debated what to do, and then last year we talked about doing the environmental assessment for those. So it had been, I'd say, probably 2 years of discussion, and we implemented that last year in the fees and charges resolution. So at this point, with that being approved,
But was there any studies on it? I mean, you can get online.
Because
and look at
you
it.
mentioned in the September board meeting, Adam, you specifically said that you were waiting, anxious was your exact words, to see this study that somebody was doing.
Have you ever
So
seen
you
that?
implemented this based on what factual information?
there's a lot of studies out there. University of Wisconsin and Grace College both do those. And there's actually, last session and this session in the Indiana House as well, there's wake boat bills going through that kind of reduce the area, have depth requirements, have distance requirements from shoreline. So at a state level too, they are looking into.
And
how to alleviate
we did,
impacts.
go through the various research that was available at the time. And, it's like anything else, you can find stuff stuff that's sponsored or paid for by the National Marine Manufacturers Association, well, they're a little bit more like, oh, it's okay up to 200 feet, and there's other ones that we come across, it says it's 600 feet, where, for the waves to dissipate. But it's also very complicated because it depends how deep you are. If you're in shallow water, there's, concern about, turning up the bottom, and then that can affect the waves, and also what kind of shoreline do you have? Is it riprap? Is it sediment, or, just dirt, which then puts sediment into the water? There's so many variables, and it seems like everybody that does these studies, they'll say, well, okay, this study did it, but they didn't check for such and such, and so this other one does. So it's complicated, but we did look into it. It's not like we just like, well, let's do this, and we talked about it for a couple of years, so,
Well, we weren't privy to any of that information. It was very, very surprising to us and very disappointing to us that you wouldn't have at least contacted the people on the lake, the freeholders that actually have surf boats currently on the lake, and maybe consider grandfathering them or giving them some special consideration, the people that are already there. I understand if you're wanting to not have, you're trying to, same thing with, jet skis. You don't really want more of them coming in, and you're trying to up the fees as much as you can and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But I just feel like there wasn't a lot of transparency with the people that currently already own them that you're aware of. I also feel like, I guess, how are you planning on, policing and enforcing this? Because just like Lester, he thinks every boat with a tower is a wake surf boat and has ballast. How are these kids, when we go down there to buy our fee, or you said, like based on make and model of your boat, so they're supposed to get online and look up this make and model of the boat, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, how are you planning on really policing this?
We'll kind of be learning that as we go through the year. Yes, that'll be the first line of defense is Googling the type of boat. And then 2, out on lake patrol, looking for boats that are created in the wake and have a ballast. So I think when you see the sports in action, that'll be the telltale sign, and there's an additional sticker that's going on, so we'll be able to tell
Right.
if they have paid that fee. So I think, self-reporting, one, looking up online at the gatehouse or the point of purchase, and then the lake patrol on the lake, looking for the activity.
Well, it's easy to go up there and the kids don't know, and, long story short, you gotta police it, but we feel like you're singling out a single wake sport. We're on the lake to have a good time safely. We have 3 boys, you're aware of that. We try to police our boys as much as we can and teach them safety. Lester knows we do. We're not, but I just feel like you guys are trying to
I'm
single out.
just saying, if you take
single
a
sport.
pontoon and you throw a couple tubes on it, and as fast as they go, and they're always doing the circles, we did a straight line.
At 9 miles per hour.
So it's just what gets me, that if you're taking water sport as in water surfing, the surf boats, then do the pontoon boats too. If you're gonna be out there and you're pulling all these kids around and stuff, they do a lot more damage than we do. Yeah, I don't say the wakeboard boats don't do any damage, but like if you don't have riprap and you don't, it doesn't matter if it's a wakeboard boat, pontoon boat pulling it, they hold 14 people or whatever. They're out there whipping around with a tubes that they do just as much damage. And it was just, I don't know, it was just kind of shocking that we in Lester, there's our neighbor, then all this has supposedly been going on for 2 years, and
We just
you
find out.
never
by
hear
this,
about it until you see this.
And honestly, I can tell you there is, because we do know wake surf boats, there are less than 10 true wake surf boats with ballast on Lakeland. Do any of you guys have one?
My
On the
brother
board?
has one.
Your brother has one.
Hey, guys.
So, okay, so you know what one is
I
though.
do.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you guys don't own them, but yet you're enforcing it, and you don't know if you haven't experienced.
Well,
one,
I think
you
it
haven't-
should have just been put around that, actually door to door instead of driving by saying this isn't, because we had a Yamaha and it had a big ass tower on it. It was not, no ballast.
No ballast, right?
So that's why we.
Or just approach the people that are already on the lake that have one, the 10 less, probably actually only maybe even 8.
What would be your
Surf boats.
compromise?
I think there should be some grandfathering for the people that already live on the lake. I understand you trying to deter them coming in, because quite frankly,
There's a bunch of idiots that come in.
there are, and there's some IU kids that are on a boat. We wake boat surf people, we talk to each other out there on the lake and, hey, good, like thumbs up or whatever. There's some kids doing some questionable things out there.
So your compromise would be that Lake Patrol would not charge you to come in because of the style of boat you have. But if you're doing something inappropriate on the lake,
Absolutely, but that's the way it should be for
well,
everything,
I'm
Mike.
just, I'm asking.
I mean, you know, I see jet skis.
Listen, I've been on compromises for 9 years on this board, and they've fallen apart, just like Teresa said.
Yeah,
So I was on that call with Chuck and Adam, and we had a compromise that fell apart.
right.
So that's why I asked, what's your compromise?
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get a special exception. And, I mean, it's all politics here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? So,
It's really disappointing to learn that you're collecting money now for an environmental fee to work on the shoreline of the lake, and we just put thousands into our shoreline and was not aware that the lake would possibly consider shoring up our, there was no shoreline. Ours was just eroding like crazy. I do have an article that I'm gonna hand out, and, it basically, like Lester says, I mean, I guess it's based on does the study is, who's gonna have their spin on
Everyone's
it.
opinion.
Everybody has a spin on it. But I can tell you right now, when it's a stormy day and the wind is blowing all day, like 2 weeks ago when we had that bad storm, that does more erosion to the shoreline, constant battering all day long, than what a surf boat does 200 yards out in the middle of the lake. I mean, that's common sense. So I feel like there should have been some more transparency before you guys implemented this fee. It wasn't listed on the agenda. And there was no discussion about it that I could find. You guys just, part of the 2023 implementing of fees just was like, it was like, kind of like, we've been talking about for this for several years. We're gonna implement it this year. That's exactly what was said. And it's like, really? Yeah. Okay, that's all. That's our beef. Thank you, guys.
Tina, I would tell you to get with Les, he's your representative, and have him bring back to the board a compromise.
Thanks, Al.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I think.
Special exceptions can be made.
I appreciate that. We'll address that.
Unfortunately, they can't be made for Teresa, but they.
I'm gonna close public comments. We're gonna move into action items, starting with administrative.
So you lived at Ellis's house.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike Black.
February
lives right
23rd,
there.
2023 annual board meeting.
Hi, both. I just got off work.
I'm sorry, I was.
We're moving on to administrative items, approval of February 23rd, 2023 annual board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion. It's been moved by Brett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Since we do have two members on the online, I have to do a roll call vote. Mike Blackwell,
Aye.
Brett Huber, Les Watson,
Is that one here?
Malcolm McClure,
Aye.
Steve Pretty,
Aye.
and I am an aye, motion carries. Next item is 2023 Independence Day fireworks contract. Adam.
So we have the Independence Day fireworks contract with the same company last year, for the amount of $9,000, which we approved in the budget. And here we have fireworks show as Monday, July 3rd, since most people have the 4th off, with a rain date of Friday, July 7th. I'd like to go ahead and request a motion to approve the 2023 Independence Day fireworks contract in the amount of $9,000.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mike, second by Les. Any discussion? Call vote. Mike Blackwell.
Aye.
Brett.
Aye.
Les.
Aye.
Malcolm.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
And I am an aye, motion carries.
Next, I have the annual board conflict of interest policy, and really this is a required report that we have to sign off to see if we have any disclosures. I really don't think we do now. Historically, we had marina owners on the board, so that was a big thing. But everybody will have to sign this and say that you do not have disclosures to make. We will send that out via Adobe Sign for everybody to sign that. So go ahead and read through it, and then we'll send that out on Adobe for everybody to sign.
So no action required by the board. We'll move on to treasurer's report. With Debbie out, I'll ask Adam. to fill in.
Debbie's not here, so I'll run through the financial highlights real quick. In February, we had a total income of $13,792 and a total expense of $39,846. Compared to last year, our income was within $300 of each other. That was $13,400 last year. Expenses last year had $137,000. That's because we were still in construction site for the upland disposal site. The biggest expense on that $39,000 was $21,000 that went to the sediment mitigation. That was one of the payments for the work at the end of last year. If anybody has had a chance to review the report of claims for February 23, I'd like to go ahead and request a motion for the report of claims for February 2023.
You have any beanies left?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, where are they for sale at?
What do we have, the donation?
It was $35 donation for the polar plunge to get.
So come to the office?
Yeah.
So moved, approve the Board of Claims.
Moved by Mike. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Brett. Any discussion? We'll move on to the roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Brett?
Aye.
Les?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion carries.
Next up, we have our annual budget timeline for 2024. That essentially begins after this meeting with the board budget committee. We'll prepare this until July. July, we'll have our first public discussion. August, second public discussion, and then the changes will need to be finalized by the end of August, because that's what we'll submit to the state. On September 28th, we'll have our public hearing, and then on October 26th, we have our board adoption. Historically, in the past, we've had our budget committee as the board officers. So I'd like to go ahead and just suggest that we continue with I don't think we actually need any motion on that.
No action required on that. Move on to fundraising and donor survey update. I think both Steve and Adam will tag on that.
Well, can you hear me? Okay,
It's a little muffled, but yeah.
well, if you can't understand me, then I'll have to defer to Adam, but I just wanted to make sure that, the board, since we have a new member, is aware of what we're doing to try to increase revenue for lake maintenance, and it's become choice as to whether we increase the assessment fee for the freeholders or create some motivation for increasing the donation. And so the LLCD board hired a consultant whose name's Christie, and formed the capital campaign committee. It's Debbie, Malcolm, myself, Adam, and Ross were on that, and trying to conduct a feasibility study to determine if a capital campaign would be a reasonable option. So we, the subcommittee, met 3 times with Christie in the past couple months. Adam and Ross met with her multiple times to provide needed information and direction regarding the campaign. So we did create an infographic, and I don't know if you want to, we will pull that up there. There it is. And this is going to be used to provide information to multiple groups having any interest in Lake Lemon. And so Christie will be creating a survey to help with the funding of the lake preservation decision, which will be sent to freeholder survey, which will be sent to the freeholders via email by May 1st. And the plan is to leave that survey open for just about a month. And that would give the board enough time to process the results prior to the June meeting. So I don't know, Adam, do you want to add anything to that?
Just that we're working on the survey to go out in early May. And it's the kind of infographic I've been working on. And really, it's the elevator speech sales pitch. If you give money to the Conservancy to Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund, here's what your money's going towards. So we highlighted a lot of, we have a generic kind of mission statement. The Lake Lemon Conservancy District committed to the preservation and continuous improvement of Lake Lemon for the benefit and enjoyment of all. We specialize in enhancing water quality, creating recreational opportunities, and mitigating the effects of sedimentation through active management of Lake Lemon's natural resources. We help to ensure that Lake Lemon is safe and accessible now and for years to come. And then, so this actual infographic will be handed out with a QR code on the back at the gatehouse, so we can catch anybody that's coming in that's not a resident. It'll be sent out to the residents with the actual survey through Constant Contact, and then we'll be sending out to our whole listserv as well, to really assess if it's feasible to raise money through a capital campaign, so we don't have to rely on taxes for this work. So we're really trying to capture donations from the whole user base and not just the freeholders of the lake. So that's where we're at now. One interesting thing that we did see was a 700% increase in property values since the formation of the Conservancy District. 18 acres reclaimed in 2022 from the dredging. Our water quality parameters that we continuously maintain fish species, and over 25,000 visitors every year to the gatehouse. So really just kind of showing the big scope of what we do. And then currently we have $96,000 in the Monroe County. That was a little bit less because we took out $40,000 grant last year and $31,000 in the Brown County Lake Lemon Enhancement Funds. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
So the key action item for stakeholder or for freeholders is to be on the lookout for that survey so that we respond. So please, your input is important.
I'm gonna jump to why Brett's still here, this resolution 03123 sublease parcel authorization procedure. So we talked about in the past, what we're gonna do moving forward. We're kind of at a very limited threshold of available parcels now for sublease. In particular, non-adjacent, so people that don't have subleases available right in their home and we're putting them in a different district or different location on the lake. We're down to the nitty gritty on those, and I think people have caught wind of that, so we're starting to get more applications. So we wanted to come up with a process to vet all these moving forward, just so there's more involvement with the board and more transparency. So the resolution essentially states the purpose and then the lease agreement with the City of Bloomington Utilities, which authorizes us to enact these sublease parcel agreements. That the remaining locations are very limited, so we need to implement additional rules. So the following procedural guidelines will be enacted from this for new surplus parcel agreements. First priority still remains under the discretion of staff and City of Bloomington Utilities. That would be directly in front of you. You're adjacent to the property. Second, third, and fourth, as defined in the original resolution. So adjacent property, non-adjacent and developed, it falls into that, whether there's a home on it, it's adjacent, whether it's non-adjacent, whether it's developed or not. But for the second, third, and fourth priorities, we will require one, the resident or freeholder would submit their application. Next, the staff, with the best of their ability, will look at potential areas and locations where the sublease could be executed. Thirdly, we would meet with staff, the residents applying for the sublease, and the district director of the area where the sublease would be located to kind of look at safety, ingress, egress, parking, make sure it's a viable location. Assuming it meets all that criteria, so upon consensus of the area director and LLCD staff, the application we brought to the full board of directors. And then lastly, that area director would recommend a motion for approval or not of that sublease. So really anything that is non-adjacent, first priority, meaning a home adjacent with a direct location, would have to go through this process. Is there any questions on that?
Yes. So if someone in District 7 wants a sublease and you turn it down, that's it. It fails at first priority.
No. So I don't really have the authority in here for adjacent. So it'd be somebody like Les, where the dock is directly in front of theirs. And if there is availability, we would not deny anything just for the sake of denying. In our agreement, it says that, we strive to increase usage, maintain usage.
I'm gonna read it to you.
Okay.
Shall be executed at the discretion of the LLCD district manager and CBU director with the guidelines and framework of the existing policy.
Yes,
But, okay, so, I mean, really, it should just say, and the board of directors, instead of having, going back to the policy. So you're kind of eliminating the board of directors rather than going back to the original policy of 11.404. I'm not sure, who wrote this?
I wrote this.
Mr. Chair, I would, I don't know why we even need this when we've got resolution 11.404 that pretty much explains, and the other question is, where's our sublease map?
We showed it one of the other
We
meetings.
showed it, but I think Les asked for a copy of it. And I would like to request a copy of the sublease map.
All right. That's not sure.
One of the things that I think is valuable with having a resolution that delineates a process for how it's going to be evaluated is that it does make it a transparent component. If there's concerns about the language within this one, I think it's certainly appropriate for us to address that. But one of the things that the previous resolution did not do is really identify how is it going to be evaluated. I think this provides additional steps, but I do, I certainly understand wanting to make sure that the final decision lies with which is it's
It
intended.
just doesn't say that.
If there's a proposal, what I might suggest is why don't Mike, you provide, we don't have to tonight, but.
I would just move that within the framework, consistent with the LLCD board of directors. I mean, I would take out, just three words in that last sentence. Consistent with the, what did I just say?
LLCD Board of Directors.
Thank you. That's what the old resolution in almost every paragraph, the Lake Limit Conservancy District Board of Directors in paragraph 1, Board of Directors, paragraph 2, Board of Directors, paragraph 3, be it resolved by the Board of Directors, as resolved by the Board of Directors, be it further resolved by the Board of Directors, and so on and so forth.
Are you suggesting that
I'm good with it as long as it says execute at discretion of the LLCD district manager and CBU director, get that, within the guidelines and framework consistent with the LLCD board of directors? That's what I said before. That's I'm changing 3 words at the end.
I'm a little bit hesitant with we could add in the board of directors and LLCD policy.
That's fine.
So we can add that additional language. So essentially, every sublease moving forward. would
Because
come
what this
before-
does takes away our oversight.
Well, the original one, historically, it was just management that provided the sublease.
I was here under Bob Madden.
So when we enacted the moratorium, so we didn't do that. So this actually provides more oversight from the board for anything that's.
The only problem I have is first priority. I have no other problems with what you've got here.
So you would suggest that the first priority come to the board as well, so it would follow the same
I
process?
said was within the guidelines and framework consistent with the LLCD board of directors, not LLCD policy. We write policy, but the resolution really is not policy. It's a resolution that we go back, we refer back to, but it's not policy.
is your intent that all requests should come before here for the decision?
No.
Or should there, okay.
No, it should be the district director that's involved in priority 1.
So the district director would be able to, with management, filter out sort of frivolous requests or things that clearly didn't.
Adam sent me an email that Susan Poling wants a sublease in District 7. I haven't been able to set up a meeting with Susan Poling. And Adam and I have conversed back and forth. She's in Florida. But she wants a sublease in District 7. And so how has that changed from you communicating with me on a sublease for someone in my district to to now it's just you and the CBU director and LLCD policy. I'm not even involved in first priority.
Well, if it's first priority, the way I understand it, it's like my property, right? I mean, I've got a house and then there's a 100-foot chunk of city land and then there's the shoreline. I mean, to me, that was a kind of an automatic thing. I mean, because there's not much to talk about. I mean, you put your dock, you got your lakefront, you put your dock in. It's the other priorities where the ambiguity was falling in. And I mean, to me, that's just kind of a automatic granting. And I would say you don't need that and burden the staff and everybody and the landowner for the priority one. Now, this person you're asking about, is it a priority one? I mean, does she have adjacent property or?
No,
Okay, so she's not a priority one.
no, so we would set up a meeting.
Right,
with her.
okay, well, that would work.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying if you're a situation like me or the Eastons or, you know, it's automatic. It's there. No one else is gonna be there, just you. What's the talk about? I mean, that's the way it's been, right?
Well, what brought this whole thing to fruition was in District 2, the other freeholders of other sub areas that had a dock in District 2. So it came with a concern with parking, congestion, safety. So that's what kind of triggered all this. So you don't have those issues on a first priority because you're walking to your dock. There's not a parking issue. There's not a congestion issue.
Right. You get to use it like it's your own, and so there's no conflict.
Welcome feedback from other board members. Welcome, Steve. Anything?
No,
Nor I.
What did Malcolm say?
I don't think he had any feedback. You didn't have any feedback, correct? Malcolm?
Correct. I don't have anything.
So right now, I'm not sure I have a motion on the table. Is there a motion?
A motion to approve as originally or with Mike's suggested changes, or that's what we need to motion.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna motion that the original wording is adequate and that we vote on that. That's my motion.
A motion from us. Is there a second?
second,
Steve seconded. Any discussion? See no discussion. I'll call the vote. Mike?
No.
Brett?
I feel like I haven't been on here long enough to fully understand the implications of all this, so I think I'd abstain from this. vote.
Les?
Aye.
Malcolm?
I'm going to abstain too, because I don't understand the difference here well enough.
Steve?
aye,
Aye. Let's see. Currently, 1, 2. I'm going to vote aye, so motion carries. 3, well, let's see. That's a tie, so it doesn't carry. We'll revisit it with proposed language unless Mike wants to make that motion.
I'll wait for new language.
We'll review it and bring it back at the next.
Like I
board
said,
meeting.
you know, whether, well, I'll get with Adam. I'll get with Adam on it.
Perfect.
No, that sounds good.
I mean, my overall, and I just don't know if that's why I didn't want to vote on it. Sure. My overall feeling is that the priority one, basically, like you said, is just straightforward. Anything below priority one, to your point, should have intimate involvement by the board member representing that district.
Thank you.
If the wording of it supports that, which I'm just not sure of, that's why I couldn't vote, then that's the direction that I would be comfortable seeing
Here's
it
the
go.
limit, Brett. I have 98 people in my district. I have very large CBU property where people can get subleases. I also have almost 24 places in what's called a common area where people have riparian rights. And it's eroded down to 22, which is why people at the far east end of my district need subleases. Even though they have riparian rights to a common area, the lands that eroded away, and now they need subleases. So that's why.
And I just feel, I mean, I think it would make, if you're involved in it and you agree that it's not a good situation, I think everybody would feel more comfortable than if just management says this is a bad. So anyway, that's, if the wording
Which is
is
why.
there, that's the direction.
And so they would be considered like a second, they would not be considered a first priority if they were getting a sublease.
See, and that's what I have a problem with. So you and I will talk.
It sounds like there's some general consensus that
Yeah, we can do
there's
that.
a thing, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of the specific.
And that's why I've asked for the map, because I really don't know where everybody's parking in my district.
Sure.
I know Mr. Dennis Kelp, he's right across the street, you know, he parks right across the street. He pays, I don't know how many years he's paid for a sublease. And it's just one, you know, the Ross, and then Foley. Good to
And
meet
I
you.
just want to extend an apology to everybody. I'm sorry that I had to sneak out here.
I think we're gonna be good. Thank you. So that's all I got.
I'll get a few, Mike, and then we'll
Thank you.
have that first priority verbiage there.
Appreciate it.
I think we have a set of management project update. McCall's on the water. They've been making a lot of progress with the private jobs. I don't know the exact number, but I think they're pushing 3,000 to 4,000 yards just in private. They've been able to take off in a month, which is pretty amazing how efficient they are on the water. That's still going. If you need private work done, riprap, dredging, anything removed, like this private work, make sure to reach out for them. We have their information on our Facebook page and the newsletter. We kind of plastered it around. There are a handful of people where they would need smaller equipment to get to the docks and areas. So we will send out an email as well, seeing if there's more people, and if they can get enough interest, they will mobilize a second barge when they're done with this big one to knock that out. So if you need work, make sure to get a hold of them now, because this is your opportunity for this year to get that taken care of. The job of judging started on Monday, the 20th. We are utilizing the piping for the upland site. So that's going, they're just got set up, and now we're getting ready to get that 3 to 4 inches of rain. So as soon as they set up, they're starting to break down and move stuff out of the way, because that is going to be a river come tomorrow and Saturday. We sold the articulated off-road truck. That went through, actually sold for $245,000. By the time they took our commission, we got a check for $235,000, which is what we paid for it. So we essentially had a 3-year free rental on that. So that worked out pretty good.
Well done.
So McAllister sold it.
Yeah, McAllister sold it.
Just point of order, it's we're still making payments on our loan for the next 18 years on it. It's really not paying off. So
So that, and the money that we got from that went back into the construction account. So the $235,000 that we used to purchase that has been placed back into the construction account.
2 and 5/8 interest.
So does that mean you paid off that loan then? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think he's referring to the bond, which is the 20.
It was originally purchased out of a bond,
Yeah.
so that bond still obviously exists.
Okay.
But the money is being put back into the intent for what the bond proceeds. are
Yeah,
for.
okay, I see. You said loan at first.
At the Indian Lakes Management Society, we did get a state award for outstanding implementation project. And I think this actually is the largest dredging project by a conservancy district in the state, and then one of the largest projects being undertaken. So a nice long presentation on that, and it was very cool because we had DNR there, Army Corps of Engineers there, IDEM there, all the regulatory agencies, a lot of big companies that have to do with financing and grant type stuff. So it was a very visible place to talk about this project going on. That's all I got.
One thing I think would be beneficial for us to investigate if there's some sound baffles or something that we can.
Please, thank you.
help
A noise
address the
curtain.
noise.
That would be great.
Could you move the pump to a different location, a little further away from those people's house?
It wouldn't matter.
Yeah, that's.
It's gonna
kind of
travel
what I
down the
saw.
road.
Well, that's true. I can hear it at my house.
Oh, yeah, and I'm right across the lake from her, and so, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then that's something to look forward to when we do bid out more work with the construction type, because you know that we were hitting the limits of that barge type and then having to pump up into that hill. So when we do look at construction on future bids or equipment types, something that would be more capable and powerful could potentially pump that without the additional pump around the shore. So it's something to take in consideration on future projects that we bid out.
Yeah, surely there should be some kind of sound deafening system.
Yeah, we can look into that too.
They make curtains, they make noise curtains.
Yeah.
So thank you for calling me back on that. And so if we're going to deploy to the pond, I would like to be notified. And we spoke about last October, don't give me, I don't know if I got the right month. A lot of things have happened. But we talked about only filling in half of the pond first, okay? So I would like for the staff to order a tributary curtain to make sure that when we pump in the pond, that we at least halfway across so that the board approves unanimously, as Debbie said, you know, woo-hoo, she said woo-hoo, but unanimous. That we only fill in half the pond, the 80,000 cubic yards, we're gonna start with 40,000. That was what was stated. So if I could be notified before we deploy to the pond, I would appreciate it. And then, I appreciate you getting back with me. When Les was the chair, I emailed Les about finding out, and I am okay with all the things that have happened, but I found out the same time that my wife found out and other people on the lake that we were expanding the beach. I'm for that. That we were having a polar plunge. I'm for that. And now that we're having the concert, I'm not sure that you could have a fundraising concert in Carmel without notifying the mayor.
I can.
Yeah. But I would ask if there are plans that are going to happen, that they at least notify you so you can notify us. Is that that's all I got. Thank you.
I'll talk with staff so that when we have those events happening.
And I'm
We know in
I
advance.
think they're great. I mean, I'm gonna get a beanie. Thank you.
They're nice meetings too.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Barring any objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Adam, can I ask for more of an update on when the overflow lake is gonna be?
Thank you guys online. I'll leave stop this recording real quick. Thank you guys.
I think there's only like.
Good night.
It's,